I remember seeing homeschool kids as a kid, and they were always kind of weird.
Yeah.
That would be my biggest concern of like ever doing homeschooling, is feeling like they're in a bubble, that they don't get the true experience. They're not going to be like out there kind of like forging their own path. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it comes down to the parents and how you dictate it. Because obviously if you keep your kid just inside and you don't facilitate any other kind of extracurriculars, they're not going to benefit from it. But the benefit of homeschooling is the opportunities and the freedom and the flexibility that you do have. So if you are in, like my online school that I went to, I didn't have to finish all my classes by a certain period. I had like 9 months. And so if I wanted to get everything done in 2 weeks, I could have. If I said, hey, I'm shooting this movie, I'm not going to be able to do this for 3 months, I could pick it up later.
Yeah.
With home, I didn't go to we tried a co-op for a bit where you would go, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for like 2 hours in the morning, and you would get graded. Didn't really love that. The opportunities weren't great in Chattanooga. But I had so much flexibility, so I was able to do everything that I was interested in. I took art classes. I did gymnastics. I volunteered. And that was only because I had the time to do it. I was not, in school until 3 p.m. I spent so much time with my family. I spent so much quality time with my brothers. My relationship with my mom is one of the things that I'm most proud of. Yeah. And we really developed that over, that period. I also think I inherited, and this could be a benefit or a drawback, depending on whether people like me or don't like me. I inherited a lot of her values because of that, because I spent so much quality time with her, that she was the one who raised me, not a teacher. And I think that is so important, because when you look at the statistics of how much time kids are spending with their parents these days, I think that the Department of Labor, it's like 35 minutes a day.
That's it?
Yeah.
What age?
What is a kid? We got to figure out the parameters.
Right. So I need to look at like what the actual age is. But when you remove like bathing, making dinner,
watching a movie together,
watching, like that kind of like that's
because
not
that doesn't
like
count.
Actual like
that's a quality time when you are face to face with your kid, bonding, doing an activity where you are interacting, not just like sitting in front of a screen, or not like, oh, my kid's in the same room but farther away, but like that's an average of 35 minutes a day. I think that was in 2021 was when I saw that stat. That was not the case for me. Like, I mean, I was with them all the time, whether I was at my dad's office doing work, whether I was with her, whether I was with grandparents. I spent so much time with family, and I'm very lucky that I, love my family. But that's something that I also, do not take for granted at all. But I think that that's something that parents should be concerned about. And obviously, depending on your, financial situation, your job situation, might not be possible. And obviously, you do need to consider, the education system, the public schools, and that sort of thing in your area. But it's really taking into consideration, like, who is raising your kid at the end of the day? Who is spending that, whether it's the media, whether it's teachers. And my mom didn't homeschool me because of that, but I think that is a result of this. She was never pulling me out of school because of an ideology or anything like that. It was simply because she wanted a better education for me. But by default, I think I got a really incredible, physical education, but also like emotionally, the interpersonal side of it.
But why do you feel like there's sometimes a stigma? Let's just say if the homeschool kid goes out into the real world, they go crazy. They start partying, they do drugs, they like get in trouble. Why do you think that is, and what held you back from that?
Again, I think those are usually the kids that have not been pushed out in the world at a young age, have not been able to take advantage of the opportunities that you can usually have when you are homeschooled. And it's interesting because the recent stats show that homeschoolers, at least in high school, going into college, drink less, do less drugs, are not partiers. And I think we're getting better at that. Also, academically, our scores are off the charts. We're getting into better schools. The Ivy Leagues seek out homeschoolers these days. And so again, it goes back to the parents. If you are making this decision, you are not only taking on your children's academic life, you are taking on their social life. And you have to remember that. Because just keeping them in their house, that is why.
Sure.
It's because they do not have a social interaction. They do not have a social life outside of the home. And obviously, spending time with mom and dad is great, but you have to be around other people. And so I think that, you see one side of homeschooling, and that is kind of the loudest group, and people oppose it for that group. But I also, like, the smartest people I know in my life are homeschoolers, because they, advanced so quickly in their academic careers because they started working at a very young age. They're incredibly self-reliant. And I think those are some of the benefits. But again, it does go back to the parents. And so if you want to homeschool, but you are not in a position to take all of that on, it's like, then maybe they would be better off in some other school. And if you are concerned about academics, try maybe a public school or a private school.
Sure.
But it's really, like, I understand the stigma because of that. But I would also push back on people saying that homeschoolers are inherently weird, because I definitely was weird. I was a total nerd. I was a theater kid. I had a career. And I look at kids that are normal these days, and I'm so glad that I'm not one. Like, I'm very glad that I was not partying. I'm so glad that I did not succumb to the same peer pressure that a lot of my friends who, grew up in the normal school system did. I was totally oblivious to all of that. I didn't go through it. I've had people say, you didn't get bullied, so, you haven't been knocked around. No, hell yeah, I've been knocked around. I had an entire acting career, where I was told no 99% of the time. My brother died. My father, has serious mental health issues. I had enough, happen in my life, basically. So I don't think that you are completely, exempt from bad things happening or being toughened up. So I guess that those are some of my pushbacks against it. But obviously, there's a reason why that stigma exists. There obviously are homeschoolers that, have come out that way.
Sure.